So what's the biggest mistake that an investor can make when they invest in property? Well, this is where the fifth law comes into play. And that law is there to protect you. So when I bought my first house, I was emotionally involved in this property. You know, it was a great house. My wife loved the house. I could see in her eyes the glitter when she realized that we're going to buy this place, and it was close to schools in a nice area, all the nice stuff. But 5 years later, when I did the calculation, I discovered that this was the worst investment that I could possibly made in my life. And that is what changed my life, as well as where the fifth law comes in. So today, we're going to look at the fifth law of a property investor. If you're new to this channel, I'm Dreyer. I'm the founder of the Wealth Creators Method, where we help entrepreneurs and investors to create, to grow, and to protect their wealth by applying the 4 high-value skills. So, welcome to the 7 laws of a property investor. And today we're going to look at the fifth law. And the fifth law basically says, don't become emotionally involved. That's the fifth law. Another way that I like to express this is do the calculation, do the sums. And if the sum does not gel, you simply walk away. So you first do the calculation before you do anything else. Now, what is this calculation that I'm referring to? You see, in '87, I made an incredible discovery, because it was during that time that I realized, because Tanya, my wife, kept a record of it, of every single expense in that property. And I put it into, those days, I think it was a Lotus spreadsheet, in any case, a spreadsheet. And to my horror, I discovered that this property, even if I could sell it at that point in time, that was an incredible negative growth on my investment. But I also know that there's a lot of other people that is making a lot of money, and I couldn't figure out how until I developed the Property Pro investment system. Now, the property investment system, there are 27 variables when it comes to property investments. Now, each and every one of these variables is actually a risk. And Warren Buffett says that risk is when you do not know what you're doing. So if you do not understand these risks and how these risks, the impact that these risks have on one another, there's no ways to make an informed decision to see if this property is really going to be a great investment or not. And that can be expressed through the Property Pro investment system as a percentage growth. In other words, how much money do you invest in that property, and what's the growth going to be on the money that you invest in the property. Now, here's where the fun comes in. So if risk is when you do not know what you're doing, the way to offset that is simply to gain the skills. And that was during that stage that I started learning the skills, because there's more than one way to offset the risk. Now, what's the biggest risk that you can ever take in your life if you want to become financially free? Well, the biggest risk is that the amount of money that you've got available as your investment or your payment on that property, if that can't give you your freedom within 5 or 10 years. Now, we express that, and that was also something that I discovered during that time. And we call that your financial freedom growth rate. In other words, how hard must your money work? And of course, property is one of the vehicles that we can use in order to make sure that you're going to get to your freedom number. So there's a whole little small calculation, very, very easy calculation once you understand it. And if you attend the webinar, the Accelerator Masterclass, I'm actually going to give that to you, as well as a little course that goes with that, in order to calculate your own financial freedom growth rate. Because once you know your growth rate, then it's very easy, because that becomes the benchmark. In other words, any investment that you can make, even if it's for 10 Rand or 100,000 or 1 million, if that does not give you more, the growth on that, than your financial freedom growth rate, you'll never be able to get to your goal. So to me, that was an incredible, incredible breakthrough at that stage. And it changed my whole life, because suddenly, with this program, the system that I had, I could actually calculate the growth or the potential growth of that property before I actually buy the property. And that was a game changer to me. So not only that, but I could identify the risk beforehand. And then I could set in motion what I would do in the event that the worst case scenario happens. Because remember, if there are 27 risks, all of those risks can happen literally at exactly the same time. And that is where the problem comes in. In 87, I've experienced it where the interest rate here in South Africa were more than 24%. And that has got like a cascade effect or a domino effect where a lot of other risk starts to trigger as well. And if you do not know how to offset that, you're going to run into a problem. But here's the best part. If you know that beforehand, you can bring that into consideration. In other words, by doing the sum, you know what the outcome is going to be and if you'll be able to handle it, and or how to offset that risk so that it does not happen to you. So this is where the fifth law comes into play. And the fifth law says, do not become emotionally involved. The only time that I was emotionally involved was when I bought my first house. Even the house that I'm staying today, it's still an emotional decision to a certain extent because Tanya wanted it. But I had a strategy and a plan to turn this property, irrespective of the value of the property, into an incredible growth opportunity. Now, of course, if you want more insights into this, I suggest that you attend the Property Accelerator Masterclass, and there we're going to give you a lot more information. So the fifth law is the foundation. If you do not get this right, in other words, how does this work? What's the sequence? First of all, decide if you really want to invest in property. It's not going to be sailing all the time. It's not necessarily easy. But if you know the risk before you get into that, there cannot be any surprises. So are you willing and to put in the time and the effort to learn this? And can you see that property can really give you that freedom that you want? So the zeroth law is, do you really want it? Because unless you really want it, you're not going to put in the time and the effort in order to see this through, because it's a long-term investment. Then that leads directly to the first law. And the first law says, invest in yourself. Unless you're going to invest in yourself, and there's three things that you need to invest in. It's your mindset, your skill sets, and your action sets, and how that works together with property in order to help you to get to your end goal. So invest in yourself. That's by far the best investment that you can ever make. And before you buy any property, invest not only in yourself, but invest in knowing the risk of that property, as well as how to structure that property, as well as how to do the calculations. Because unless you know that, you will not know what your financial freedom growth rate is, and if this property with the amount of money that you've got available will be able to give it to you. And if you can't get that growth, you'll never be financially free. And in short, if your IGR, your investment growth rate, is smaller than your FFGR, your financial freedom growth rate, it simply means that you are busy working for your money. And in 87, that was my discovery, that I was working for my money and that the house was costing me money, even though when I bought it, emotionally, I thought that this was a great deal. And the estate agents told me that I've bought this basically way, way below market value if I compare to what other properties were in that price range at that point in time. So once that is done, then you need to understand with property, and this is where the second law comes in, and that is that cash flow is more important than capital. So everyone tries to go for the capital in new developments and stuff like that. Nonsense. At the end of the day, when the pawpaw hits the fan, if you do not have cash flow, property to me, I see as a mini business. And I treat each and every individual property, although it may be in a portfolio, I treat as a small business, and I handle it and I treat it as a business. And then, of course, you have to take control of this whole process, which, by the way, is the third law. Unless you're going to be in control, you can't allow someone else to start dictating to you. And for that reason, one way to take control is simply to do the calculation and to know how to do that calculation without someone affecting you or influencing you in order to get to their will and to get to their outcome. And then The next law, basically always buy from a motivated seller. That is the only place where you can sometimes structure the deal where a normal property, even though it may seem to be a bargain, will not be a bargain and will not give you a growth rate that is higher than your financial freedom growth rate. But how do all of this comes together? This is where the fifth law comes into play. Do not become emotionally involved. And the way to do it is simply do the sums. So if this is something that interests you, there's a PDF. I'll give you a link, a downloadable PDF that you can have a look, where I'm going to get a lot deeper into the 7 laws of a property investor. And then also you'll find a link to an invite to the Property Accelerator Masterclass, where over a 2-hour period, maybe 3 hours, depending on how many questions there will be, I'm going to get deep into property and show you how it's possible to retire literally within 5 years by applying the Wealth Creators Method with one single property. So make sure to click those links and to order. That is, of course, if you want to. If you find this interesting and you want more of this, please give me a like, and then also subscribe. Click that bell icon so that you'll be the first to be notified the moment that new material comes out. And of course, we try to put a video out each and every week. So you'll really learn, because this is part of what you're doing at the moment. You are investing in yourself, and congratulations and well done for doing that. But I do think that the masterclass is going to start this process to really show you what is possible with property and what we are doing and our students are doing. So thank you so much for your time, and then I'll see you in the next one.